Well, she's supposed to come on at 10:15. Did you tell him 10:30, West, or?
Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Detroit in Black and White. Adolph Mongo is out in the world doing something. But we're here with Allan Lengel. I am Vanessa Moss, and we have Jim Nardone. Welcome. Good morning.
All right. Good morning. Good morning. We're here at McShane's at the corner of Michigan and Trumbull. Thanks to McShane's for letting us use their place. So let's. Should we start rolling with the outrage?
We should start rolling with it now. I know people are really excited. We have some wonderful guests that's coming on today. We're going to get to them right after our outrage. So we're going to start with you.
All right. My outrage is the Supreme Court. I mean, everything that we feared was going to happen with the Supreme Court, knocking down affirmative action, knocking down the eliminating the student loans, the issue on the website out in Colorado where the person rejected a gay person's marriage website or whatever. What we're seeing is really, we're seeing the intelligentsia of our community or whatever, really the bigoted, rising to the bigotry of it. It's like, if we could roll something on.
After completing his undergraduate degree, Thomas was accepted at a number of prestigious law schools, including Harvard, but he chose to attend Yale Law because he believed the campus's liberal politics best aligned with his own. Well, there, however, Thomas became disillusioned with his own status at that elite university. As the New York Times reported back in 1991, Thomas was accepted to Yale as part of the school's explicit affirmative action plan to admit more students of color. But he resented any suggestion that he received any special consideration because of his race.
Well, I mean, the thing is, look, the race, the schools have been so behind and they're trying to be more diverse. And the idea that race is only an element of it. It's not like, okay, you're black, you're in, okay, you're Native American, whatever, you're in. It's an element there, and they're trying to diversify after years of rejecting and not accepting students of color, and it's really just a major setback. Like I say, if it was the only, if that was the only thing, and John Roberts, when he did wrote the majority opinion, wrote such a bullshit opinion saying race cannot be considered yet. If you want to write an essay and mention your race, well, that's okay. You can kind of wink. Hey, I'm a person of color, but it's such bullshit. It's like he knows it's wrong. He's intellectually dishonest by doing that, but he's afraid of being, labeled as liberal or moderate.
So I'm going to get in here for a minute.
Yes.
Okay. So
dig in.
I looked at it as you can't say. Have a box on the application, affirmative action, are you black, white, Puerto Rican, whatever, and just based on that checking the box, you can't get in the school, right?
Right.
But as you said, and I agree, he says, but you can write an essay. Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I had to write an essay to get into law school.
No, I understand, but
and so you can use that opportunity to talk about how your race impacts you and how this will be a good thing for you to get in that university. Let me say this. We are creative people, right? People are going to get around that especially lawyers. People are going to get around that. But there's also another positive thing. We have what we call HBCUs. My son is a graduate of an HBCU.
Which one?
So Lane College in Jackson, Tennessee, my oldest son. Okay. So what you're going to see is an influx of people going to HBCUs. A few years ago, We were talking about how these HBCUs didn't have money. The other thing that's going to happen is this. These universities, I submit that these universities, it's a money game. Getting students in the schools, I mean, that's why HBCUs were suffering, is because these other universities were getting these students in these other schools. Do you think that they're going to let their business fail? Heck no. So, for me to be outraged, and I'm ticked, and that was part of my outrage this week. I'm ticked about it. But I have to, in my mind, be creative and say, you know what? How can we get around this? And we're going to get around this.
But it's, I mean, like John Roberts' opinion, why should we have to get around it when?
Because we've been doing it all the time.
But I'm saying that it should never be the factor that you say, okay, this person is of a certain race, they're getting in, we need more, we need more black people, we need more Native American, we need, or whatever. But it's like basically wink, wink. It's just intellectually dishonest to say that. Where it's well, it's just it's bullshit. It's just total bullshit.
In all transparency, I got into law school because of affirmative action. Yay! You wouldn't be sitting next to lawyer Vanessa Moss had it not been for affirmative action. So affirmative action is a good thing. But I also think that there's going to be some creative ways to get around this. There are going to be schools that will say, okay, we don't have to do that. We'll take the top 10% of the students from each school into our university. So if you talk about an urban area like Detroit, then you take the top 10% students. There's your diversification right there. So I'm just saying that I think there's going to be some creative ways. So Jim, what is your outrage of the week?
I'm going to change my outrage. I'm really excited about the guests we're having today, Dr. West and Mrs. Barfield. And I want to know how Dr. West, my outrage is with the two-party system. And I want to know how Dr. West is going to be able to dismantle the two-party system and run for president all at the same time.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to dismantle it. I mean, he's going to, what I think concerns some people. Yeah. All right. We'll ask him what concerns, like in 2016 when they had Jill Stein running on the Green Party, is that she took away votes from Hillary Clinton, and probably enough between her and anyone else to take away and put Donald Trump in office. And it'll be interesting, which will pose that question to him, how would he feel if he is the guy who puts Donald Trump into office? But we'll ask him that question. It's
we
it's
talk
a fair question.
Ralph Nader throwing the election in 2000 in Florida,
absolutely.
And I think that's really, you should be able to run for president. So what kind of country do we have if you're trying to push people out of the arena? We should push people into the arena, not out of the arena.
Well, the problem is, and in a very theoretical sense, democracy, it's great. The more, the merrier, all that kind of stuff. But strategically, I mean, we see that here in Detroit, in the 13th district, and a lot of black people are angry that there's no representation because there was more, the merrier. There were 7 or 8 candidates running, and Sri Thanadar, the only non-black candidate, won.
Right.
And so
he had more money, but you had all these people with their egos running for office, right?
More the merrier.
So the more the merrier. And you can't, for me, I can't be mad because we don't have black representation. Because when we had the opportunity to, we did not co-opt and stand behind a candidate. Those other candidates that say, hey, this is the opportunity for us to have a black person representing us in the 13th district. Let me do this for the sake of representation. Instead, they say, hey, I'm running. I'm the best person, whatever. And I suspect that, I've been getting information from people. I'm sure you've got text messages and things like that it's going to be the same thing again. And guess what? He's going to win again.
Okay.
The best way to pick him off would be at this time because he's a one-termer, right? But if those same people, if you have 8, 9, 10 people getting in the race, guess what? He's going to win again.
Look, you know what? It's unfortunately come down so often to the lesser of two evils. I remember in 2016, I was interviewing a Hispanic woman at Western High School in Southwest, and I asked her. I said, "Who did you vote for?" And she said, "I voted for Hillary." And I said, "Did you vote for Hillary or did you vote against Trump?" She said, "I voted against Trump." I looked at it like it was a choice between the flu and cancer, and I took the flu. So I think we may see that again, but again in 2016, a lot of Bernie Sanders people said, screw Hillary Clinton. We don't, and look, Hillary Clinton was not the most likable candidate, and it's understandable, but here the alternative was they realized, okay, there is a difference between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And so in 2020, the Democratic Party, with the leadership of Joe Biden running, decided, okay, we're going to take some of the more left issues as part of our platform. We want you all in because we need to beat Trump. So go ahead.
Didn't we handpick Joe Biden? And when I say we, the Democratic establishment, didn't they push some of the other candidates aside? I would argue that they did to make sure that Joe had a clear path.
And they could have done the same thing for the 13th district. They could have done the same thing for the 13th district, but it didn't happen.
Yeah. Bernie Sanders. I mean, look, Bernie could have run as an independent. I mean, look, Ross Perot, ran as an independent, and he screwed the Republicans. So it's a matter of the more the merrier. I agree with you, Jim. I mean, it's a shame that we have a democracy where we have to think that way, or we don't have to, but a lot do strategically. And it's unfortunate because the two-party system. I mean, the Republicans and the Democratic Party are both. There's a lot of fucked up things about both of them. There just happens to be the Republican Party at the moment has gotten so off the rails that even a lot of the mainstream people no longer can participate or feel part of it. And it's been a progression for years where any moderate has been pushed out of the Republican Party. We've seen it in the Senate. And, the Republican Party, there's no room. That's why, like Joe Manchin, some people say, oh, my God, Joe Manchin's going to, join the Republican Party. He's too liberal for the Republican Party. Sure, they'll take him in and say, yeah, we've got the majority, but it's the Republican Party needs a whole. It's rotted. We see in this state.
Listen,
the head of the Republican Party.
Both parties have rottenness.
One just has more.
In its core.
One just has more.
Arguably, that's your argument. That's your contention. But that's why we have people like Bernie Sanders or like Dr. Cornel West that's running for office, because they do not subscribe to what the Democratic Party is talking about and not what the Republican Party is talking about.
All right.
In these bleak times, I have decided to run for truth and justice, which takes the form of running for president of the United States as a candidate for the People's Party. I enter in the quest for truth. I enter in the quest for justice. And the presidency is just one vehicle.
All right. Let's get Ms. Barfield. Oh.
Dr. West, good morning.
Oh, you all are blessing me very early here in Los
All right. Where are you?
Blessing to hear my dear sister and two brothers, and I salute Brother Henry. He's so kind.
Where are you this morning?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay, you're in Los Angeles. You grew up in Sacramento, right?
Well, I grew up in Sacramento, but I'm in LA right now. Yeah,
okay.
You're right. I'm a Californian in origin, which is to say, really from Louisiana, made my move to California, like so many black folk making their move to Sunshine Land.
Right. So we're gonna get right to it. So you're running for president of these United States of America, correct? Why are you running, and what's your platform?
Well, one, my dear sister, we're in such deep trouble. I just want to reintroduce America to the best of itself. That we've seen the worst. We've seen Brother Trump. He represents the worst, cold-hearted, mean-spirited, xenophobic. And Brother Biden himself, too milquetoast, too mediocre, not full of vision, not full of fire. We come from a country that has produced Martin Luther King Jr. and Rabbi Heschel. We come from a country that produced some powerful figures, Fannie Lou Hamer and others. We haven't even got to Detroit yet. Good God, Aretha Franklin. We could just play some Aretha and have some dialogue on some truth as it relates to politics. So I'm trying to bring this legacy into electoral politics. So I'm not a regular politician, and I don't want to be. I want to tell the truth, and the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak. I want to talk about justice in the most powerful way, and justice is what love looks like in public. We got too much hatred. We got too much revenge. We got too much Machiavellian sensibility of demonizing and trashing. No, that's not my tradition at all. I come out of Shiloh Baptist Church. I come out of Chocolate Side of Sacramento. We on the love train. We on the justice train. And people say, oh, that sounds outdated. Love and justice are never outdated. Never out of fashion. I don't care what the context is. I don't care who we're talking about. I don't care what color, gender, or sexual orientation we're talking about. If you're not talking about love and justice, then I'm not on your train.
Well, Dr. West, let me ask you, I mean, you are running on the Green Party. How do you get the Republicans and the Democrats to talk about the issues that you want to address?
Yeah, appreciate the question, my brother. One is you've got to go directly to them where they are. I'm going straight into Trump country. And I'm going to tell my vanilla brothers and sisters, you don't need to follow a neo-fascist Pied Piper. I know you're wounded. I know you're economically pushed against the wall, but you don't have to scapegoat the most vulnerable. You can confront the most powerful. 1 out of 9 of Brother Trump's supporters supported my dear brother Bernie Sanders. Why? Because they were so upset with the neoliberal status quo. They could see the cowardliness of it. They could see the complacency of it. They know the Democratic Party is a party dominated by Wall Street and Pentagon, dominated by the corporate class, with window dressing with its progressives. That's why Bernie wasn't treated right. I was upset. He was treated unjustly. I was with him in Nevada when we were winning, and Brother Obama made the call and had all the neoliberals drop out, and Amy and Pete, because he wanted anybody but Brother Bernie. We had dinner that night. Of course, I was Christian, so I prayed, but Bernie's a secular brother, so he just contemplated. But the point was that it was clear they would rather have the Republicans than even Bernie. Bernie could have beat them. So he said, wait, what's going on here? This is internal politics. We're concerned with everyday people, poor people, working people, no matter what color, gender, sexual orientation. You got to go to them. I'm going straight into Trump country. I'm going straight to the Democrats, and I'm going to tell them there's something inside of you that is much better than what you are settling for.
Dr. West,
Yeah, go ahead.
Vanessa Moss here. I have a question for you. I have a couple of questions for you. One, why did you decide to run the Green Party candidate as opposed to a Democrat candidate? And two, there'll be some people that look at you as, you know, you got in the race and that you're going to be a spoiler. What is your opinion about that? And one more question. Supreme Court, because you're a professor, the Supreme Court came down with their decision about affirmative action. What's your take on that?
Well, you got a big three, my sister. I'm telling you.
1, 2, 3.
No, but I appreciate the high quality dialogue you all were having before I was here, because we really need a seminar or a colloquium with all of these complex issues, though. But first, in regard to the issue of being a spoiler, you see, no party owns votes of other people. People think critically for themselves and they decide, you see. So that when you talk about Hillary Clinton, most of the votes that Sister Jill got people would never have voted for Hillary at all. Many of the votes that Jill got, they had never voted in their lives, because what? 38% of our fellow citizens never participate whatsoever in electoral politics. They've given up. They know that too much of it is legalized bribery and normalized corruption is rotten to the core. They hold back. Who will speak to them? That's what the Green Party traditionally has done. And that's very important. You got to speak to people who ordinarily have dropped out. And who is that? Young people, disproportionately Black people and brown people. They've just given up. They've seen these politicians come in and out with all kind of empty promises and so forth. Now, in terms of the Green Party itself, I started with the People's Party, and they were kind enough to ask me, but the People's Party only had one state, and they had their own internal struggles. The Green Party's already got 20. We're going to probably have a book up, probably about 42 in just a matter of months, with Brother Rick and others who are working very well and intensely about this. And I think when it comes to affirmative action, when it comes to our precious gay brothers and lesbian sisters and trans and the Supreme Court, you got to keep in mind, the Supreme Court has never been a friend to justice for poor people, working people, and black people. It just never has. Supreme Court, for the first 80-some years, you had slaveholders defending slavery. You had segregationists defending American terrorism, Jim Crow and Jane Crow. We had a moment in the sun with the Earl Warren Court. And the Supreme Court said, oh my God, we can open up. So the question became, what are you going to do with these precious black folk after 100 years of barbaric slavery and after another 90 years of barbaric Jim Crow with lynching and terrorism? Well, we got a weak tool. It's called affirmative action. Now, affirmative action, for the most part, really didn't affect the black poor. It didn't affect the mass incarceration regime. It didn't affect the precious brothers and sisters in the hood. It didn't affect those dealing with decrepit school systems, indecent housing, no access to health care. It was a black middle class thing. Now, I ain't got nothing against the black middle class, but I'm a Christian and I always look at the world through the lens of the least of these prisoners, Jamal and Letitia on the block. So that the middle class had access, and thank God it was fair, but even that weak tool has now been taken away. So you say, well, my God, this conservative backlash is so intense. That's not new for black people.
Absolutely.
No, we're not paralyzed by despair. We're not surprised by setback. We come from a people of the blues. What's the blues about? Catastrophe, but catastrophe never having the last word. Nobody loves me but my mama, and she might be jiving too. That's B.B. King. Strange Fruit that our Jewish brother Maripol wrote for the genius from Baltimore City, Billie Holiday. Strange Fruit, black body swaying in the southern breeze. Unbelievable catastrophe, but what?
Cornel.
Never has the last word. Here comes compassion. Here comes resilience. That's
Cornel, I have
the
a
tradition
quick-
we talking about.
I've got a question for you. When you talk, you mentioned about the prisons being filled with black people. What do you want to do about that? What's your policies that would really kind of move that forward and change the dynamics of all that?
Well, one, my brother, in the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., I'm an abolitionist. We need to abolish poverty and homelessness. That if we can actually create access to food, housing, quality education, jobs with a living wage. I'm a strong defender of my brothers and sisters of all colors in the trade union movement, where they've had to deal with stagnating wages as the CEO salaries increase exponentially, organized greed at the top. Poverty is a fundamental factor as to why people find themselves in such conditions of desperation and then begin to turn on each other. I don't think it's the only factor, but it's a fundamental one. And then you have stronger families, stronger communities, stronger sense of possibility. And then I learned from Denmark, I learned from Finland, I learned from Sweden. When you do have the murderers and the rapists and so forth, you don't put them in solitary confinement and throw away the key. No, you have rehabilitation. You have access to education. I've been blessed to teach in prisons for 42 years, beginning in Norfolk, where Brother Malcolm was incarcerated. And what do I find in the prisons? I teach Plato. I teach Augustine. I teach Toni Morrison. I teach Ralph Ellison. I teach black music in the prisons. And what happens to those brothers? Shoot, some of the most creative and intelligent folk I've ever taught, and I've taught at Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. Why? Because they're cared for, they're given attention, they're targeted, their minds are able to be cultivated. That's what we need. That's what I mean by calling for the abolition of poverty and a fundamental transformation of the prison system.
Dr. West, we have a question. Jim Nardone former chief police in Trenton, Michigan. He has a question for you.
Dr. West, can you tell us how your faith influenced your politics going back to the early days? I read some stuff that I thought was fascinating. I'd like to hear a little bit about it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But I'll tell you this, I didn't know that Michigan had a Trenton. I thought that was New Jersey only.
That's the real trend.
Yeah.
You all educate me in more ways than one. But no, that that my Christian faith sits at the center of who I am, but it has so much to do with my formation. You see, I am who I am because somebody loved me, somebody cared for me. And that's Irene B. West, that's Clifton West, and that's inseparable from Shiloh Baptist Church with Reverend Willie P. Cook and Deacon Hinton and Sarah Ray, who was my vacation Bible school teacher. Now, we had the Black Panther Party right next door. So they were concerned about poor people. They were concerned about their critiques of empire and capitalism and so forth. And I was able to pick up a whole sense of insights about being concerned about the poor. But I've always put my Christian faith at the center, even as I try to proceed with an analysis of organized greed at the top that's too much out of control. And this is not new. I mean, it's the history of the species. The history of the species is the history of domination, oppression, envy, resentment, hatred, and greed. That goes all the way back. And thank God for the Hebrew scripture that tries to create some interruption. It says, no, we want to spread hesed for the orphan and widow. We want to spread hesed to the fatherless and the motherless. What do you mean, Amos? What do you mean, Isaiah? Don't you know that goes against history? That's exactly right. And here comes Jesus doing what? Running the money changers out of the temple. 400 troops were protecting that temple. Most of his disciples got scared. They got cowardly. They got pushed back. He ends up on a cross. That particular Palestinian Jew creates an interruption in human history against the hatred, against the greed. Love thy neighbor as thyself.
Dr. West, we got to cut to a commercial, and then we'll come back and we're going to wrap it up. We're going to have one more question, and we're going to wrap it up. Okay?
Absolutely.
All right.
Thanks so much. It's great.
Great having you. Good to have me.
Great having you.
We'll be back in a minute.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. We are living through unprecedented times. As a result, the Michigan Homeowner Assistance Fund was created. This fund, administered by the state of Michigan, is designed to help homeowners cope with pandemic-related hardships, such as delinquent property taxes. Residents may apply for up to $25,000 to help cover 2019, 2020, and 2021 tax years. Previous year's taxes must be paid in full or in a payment agreement with the Treasurer's office. Eligible homeowners must have a qualified financial hardship that occurred on or after January 21st, 2020. You must currently own and occupy your home as your primary residence and must have owned it since January 21st, 2020. To see if you qualify, please visit waynemetro.org, call 313-388-9799, or email taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Okay, we are back with Dr. Cornel West. I understand Henry here says that you are polling at 6%, which is great. But also the question is, I know who you're going to vote for president, obviously. But if I was a betting man, I'm going to say you're not going to win. And does it matter to you if it's Biden or Trump, if that ends up being, does it matter to you who's in office? Does it matter if it's Trump or Biden at this point?
Yeah.
Well, you've got catastrophe and disaster in both cases, though, absolutely. And it's true. You can make a case that disaster is better than catastrophe. I think Trump is a neo-fascist in a very, very ugly kind of way. The way he talks about our precious immigrants, the way he talks about our precious poor people and so on. But the problem with Biden, the sense in which Trump is pushing us toward the second Civil War, and Biden is pushing us toward the Third World War because we're fighting that proxy war with Russia. And you see, his militarism, which is so much out of control, not just with Russia, but with China. And you've seen just what happened in the last couple of days with the arms sent to Taiwan. And so the question becomes, well, how do we both acknowledge very practically the degree to which there's a difference, but on the other hand, if we don't break out of the two-party system that serves as an impediment to speak to the needs of poor people and working people and American citizens, how do we ever break? How do you fight fascism? You don't fight fascism with milquetoast neoliberalism. You have a alternative vision, alternative passion that galvanizes the people and goes to the base of fascism. We got to get at Trump's base to convince them to go another way.
Dr. West, would you be willing to drop out if either party, if they promised you something? Or basically, is your candidacy for sale?
Or really a better way, would you accept if your issues were in the platform?
That's my question. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Well, then
that's
you're
my
saying it's
question,
for sale.
Dr. West.
Of course he's going to say no.
Of course, but I want him to answer it. I don't need you to answer for him. He's on the show for a reason.
I tell you, my brother wants to help me out here. I appreciate that.
You don't need his help. You're Dr.
But
Cornel
no, my dear
West,
sister,
okay?
I want to give it to you straight chaser like Thelonious Monk. You know what I mean? One, I'm not a brother with a brand. I got a cause, not a brand. So I'm not a sellout. I don't cave in. I don't give up. I don't found myself in despair. When you have a cause, you got a calling. It goes back to my Christian faith. When you have a calling, it means then that you're willing to live and you're willing to die for something bigger than you. But keep in mind, this is not about me. This campaign is a moment in a great movement, in a great tradition that goes all the way back to Martin King and Rabbi Heschel and Dorothy Day and Annie Lou Hamer, and we ain't even got to Curtis Mayfield yet. And the Detroit, it could be Stevie Wonder from Saginaw. Those are love warriors. Those are freedom fighters. That's where I come from. Those are the ones who set the standard for me.
So, Dr. West, we have another guest that's coming on. What are your last comments? And hopefully we can get you back on the show because, I mean, this is a very lively, spicy conversation. People are really excited that you were coming on. But we'd like to wrap it up so we give her the opportunity to come on.
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I want to shout out my dear brother, World Anderson, who I love like a brother from Detroit, as well as Horace, my dear brother, Horace Sheffield. But I would say this. I want to salute the three of you for being so honest, so candid, so loving and engaging, because your conversation constitutes the glue that's holding this fragile democratic experiment together. You have to have human beings who have backbone, who are honest with each other. You can disagree, you can agree, you're still in contact with each other's humanity. That in and of itself is an interruption from the history of hatred and greed and envy and resentment that leads to polarization and gangsterization. So I'm saluting you three. I'm saluting Brother Henry. And when you call, I come running.
We're going to call and have you back for sure. We're definitely going to call you back. And thank you so much for coming to the show. Nice meeting you on video. Hopefully we'll get a chance to meet each other in person, Dr.
Thanks so
West.
much. Good luck.
Thank you, indeed. God bless your precious families. God bless you and your precious family.
If you come to Detroit, you'll have to look us up.
Absolutely.
Are you going to campaign? Are you planning? Are you going to campaign around the country?
Absolutely. I've got to come through Motown. I've got to come. All roads go through Motown. You all know.
All right. I like that.
All right. Take care. Have
Thanks
a wonderful
so much.
Saturday.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thanks, man. All right. So we've got our next guest, Clementine Barfield, the founder of SOSAD, founder and president of SOSAD, and now she is living, and you could correct me, you're living in Nashville, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thanks so much. We've heard over the years, the many years, and you've done such great work over the years. Tell us, you have your stories, you created SOSAD from a result of your two sons being shot. Tell us a little bit about that.
My 15 and 16-year-old sons were shot after an altercation at Northwestern High School. My 15-year-old son talked to somebody else's girlfriend. And he and 5 of his friends surrounded him at school and pulled a gun on him and threatened him. And they did not call me to the school that day. They did not let him call me that day. They said they were afraid he would be calling for reinforcement. And when I was called to the school and discussed with the assistant principal was out of town, discussed with the assistant principal about the incident, they had, expelled my son for not telling him who the boys were with the gun. And they never resolved any issue there.
So nobody was ever prosecuted for the shootings?
Well, I'm getting to the shooting. My sons were shot down the street from school by one of the same boys that had pulled a gun on him in school for talking to one of their girlfriends. So yes, the boy was apprehended. He was prosecuted. He was given 18 to 24 months for careless and reckless use of a firearm, death resulting. He was out after 18 months, and he shot someone else.
Miss Barfield, Vanessa Moss, first of all, thank you so much for giving us your time this Saturday morning, because I'm sure there are a few other things that you could be doing. And
Farmers market.
And thank you for being patient and waiting. Unfortunately, the shootings of your sons triggered your
activism.
Your activism, exactly. And you started SOSAD. So could you tell us about SOSAD and if you're still active today? I know you're not in Detroit, but could you tell us about SOSAD?
I think most Detroiters don't know that I'm not in Detroit.
Oh, now they know.
And now they do. I left Detroit actually quite a number of years ago. I moved to Nashville and I worked for a number of years here with the Red Cross, but doing, similar kind of work with disaster cycle services. But in Detroit, the work was really about movement building. It was really about validating the worth of my son and all the children that were being shot or killed during that time, because in 1986 we had 365 children 16 and younger that were shot in Detroit, and 43 of those children died. So we're not counting those children that died by other means, that were killed by other acts of violence. That's the ones that were shot. And the fact that violence had reached such a proportion, we had to do something. And after trying to organize other parents and organize the community, some of the local ministers came to me and said that if I would sit down, he said, "You women don't know what you're doing anyways."
Oh,
well,
wow.
He said a little bit more than that. He said, "You're stupid." And you women don't know, you're stupid, and you don't know what you're doing. You need to just sit down.
And the minister said that to you?
Oh, yeah.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
And if I were to repeat names, you would know. But
It's out there. I read all about it.
Sure.
It's out there on the internet.
But for me, he said that, we could make you a Rosa Parks. But the last thing I wanted to be was a sweet mother Rosa Parks. My child was dead. I was going to stand up. I wasn't going to sit down. I was going to stand up. If all I could do was stand, I was going to stand. And I did that.
1986. That was 1986.
Yes.
When did you launch SOSAD? And for those who don't know, it stands for Save Our Sons and Daughters.
Actually started working toward it the very day. But the very first meeting was in January of '87. And I might add that at the time I was a young parent, a young wife. But when my sons were shot, I was 35 years old. I turned 36 the next month. So I feel as though my children and I grew up together.
And you had 4 children, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us, if it's not too painful, can you tell us a little bit about Derek? And then I know that you lost Roger in 2018. If you could just tell us a little bit about them, I think it would be important that we learn a little bit about them if it's not too painful for you.
They were tall, handsome, athletic, well-liked young men with a future. And in Derek's case, he played basketball, so he was determined that he was going to make it into the NBA, and he had everything that he planned for his life. His mama was a part of it. But for Roger died, a little bit of Roger died for 32 years. He died 4 years ago. And that's been the most traumatic in my life, because how he suffered over those years with a 9mm bullet in his head. And the mental illnesses and trying to be the person, even until the day he died 4 years ago, he still tried to be the person he was meant to be in this life.
Ms. Barfield, we're going to hit up against the break. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back, and we have a few more questions for you, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks so much for sharing. We appreciate it. Henry?
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri. We are living through unprecedented times. As a result, the Michigan Homeowner Assistance Fund was created. This fund, administered by the state of Michigan, is designed to help homeowners cope with pandemic-related hardships, such as delinquent property taxes. Residents may apply for up to $25,000 to help cover 2019, 2020, and 2021 tax years. Previous year's taxes must be paid in full or in a payment agreement with the Treasurer's Office. Eligible homeowners must have a qualified financial hardship that occurred on or after January 21st, 2020. You must currently own and occupy your home as your primary residence and must have owned it since January 21st, 2020. To see if you qualify, please visit waynemetro.org, call 313-388-9799, or email textinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
We're back, Ms. Barfield. We're going to talk about SOSAD and the footprint that SOSAD and the impact that SOSAD had in Detroit. Could you talk a little bit about that and talk about also, because of SOSAD, it had an impact nationwide. Could you talk about that?
Well, the thing about movement building is that there are a lot of aspects to it. And from the very beginning, it was all about building a movement to stop the violence. And we kind of learned that in order to stop the violence, we had to teach peace and promote peace and make peace more a part of our lives than violence. And some remnants of our peace program is still out there. There are so many people, young people now, that's working toward peace and out in the street, doing movement building. And a lot of those same people are young people that were active with SOSAD, and I stay in touch with a lot of them, especially Tafiri Brent, who is out there in a big way. And that was one of Derek's friends from early childhood. But there are others. And the movement has continued, maybe in a different form, because they're not the number of grief support groups that we had and we had those groups that were age and gender specific, and some for families. We had programs in the prisons working with men that had committed crimes. Brother Daryl Woods is one of those people. He's out. He's doing a magnificent job in the community now. But we worked with him. He built a SOSAD chapter in the prisons. But teaching peace was one of the primary things that we did, doing violence prevention programs and activities, having marches, and then doing crisis intervention, going door to door in neighborhoods where people were being killed, and offering help and support to those people, having a peace rally, anti-gun rally every Thursday at noon down at the City County building by the Spirit of Detroit statue, planting trees in memory of children that were being killed. We were really focusing on trying to heal the community, trying to heal people's hurts, and to give children a sense of hope. We had 43 universities that would come to Detroit from as far as way as California, because Pepperdine University came every year. But it was started with us through University of Michigan and Vanderbilt University out of Nashville, where they would do their alternative spring break with SOSAD. And churches hosted them, let the students sleep on the floor, and you know, and they we taught them our peace program, and they went into Detroit public schools and recreation centers, had overnight peace parties, taught children peace, had peace rallies, and connected our peace chain. And the overall emphasis was on making peace more popular and acceptable than violence. And I think we need to continue to do that, but we have to focus more on healing. And I just want to say one last thing, and that is that when Dr. Martin Luther King was killed, people were wondering, all of us were wondering, like what are they going to do now? And of course, Ralph went back to preaching. Ralph Abernathy went back to preaching because he was a pastor. He was a good preacher. But Jesse Jackson went on this national campaign, spreading hope, and with the theme, "Keep Hope Alive." And people thought that was, that was such a small thing, but no, that was a big thing, because as part of that, every time he talked to students, to children, young people, he made them repeat after him, "I am somebody."
Right.
And our legacy as a people, I'm third generation post-slavery. My great-grandmother was a slave woman, but she taught my grandmother that she could do better because she was free. My grandmother taught my mother that she could do better as next generation. And my mother taught me that I could do anything because I'm third generation post-slavery and I'm free. And that was the legacy. We have to give our children a legacy of hope, a legacy of care and concern, and we have to heal. And I don't want to quote scripture because I'm not good at quoting scripture. I'm not the preacher. My late husband was a preacher. I'm a pastor. I'm not a preacher. But Second Chronicle, I think it's 7:14. Heal the land. And I'm done.
We see everywhere here in Detroit, Chicago, certainly every weekend, we'll hear about 50, 60 shootings going on. Besides hope, and sort of passing on the word hope, what else can we do to really get to those more immediate things that are happening here in Detroit every day, every weekend? Chicago, it's insanity that's going on, and
because a part of giving people hope is giving them alternatives. We've got to teach people that they are worthy, that they are somebody, that they are important. Detroit has a history of not just violence, but of all of the corruption, all of the things that children have been exposed to, all the things that they've had to grow up seeing. They've had to grow up knowing that there's a prison economy just waiting for them, and they still fall into the trap because the alternatives are not there. The city is changing, the city is growing, but is there a place for them? Is there a place in Detroit for young Black men? Is there? Or is there a prison bed waiting for them somewhere? We can count on that. But alternatives, they've got to have alternatives. They've got to feel that they are worthy, and they've got to be prepared. So, I mean, they're just basic things that we have to keep working at doing, and that is helping our children prepare to live, not helping them prepare to die.
Ms. Barfield, we got to wrap up. I think Jim has one last question, but we're going to thank you in advance for coming on Detroit in Black and White. Adolph is not here, but in physical sense, but he's here in spirit.
And we do want to have you
back. And we want to have you come
We're going to have you back.
I'll get him. I mean, he didn't tell me anything about any of you. I thought until I got your notice last night, I thought I was going to be on the air with Adolph. So I'll get him.
Yeah,
we apologize for that.
That's okay.
I'm not apologizing. He's a grown man. He could apologize for that. But the show's Detroit in Black and White. Allan, Lengel, Vanessa Moss, and Jim Nardone is a guest. We're here every Saturday. We encourage you to watch the show. We encourage you to subscribe. We encourage you to share. You are on Detroit in Black and White.
But we are.
I have a niece that's an attorney, Veronica Leonard. They're in Southfield.
Oh, no, Veronica. We good friends.
Yeah. She told me about you, so she's educated me a little bit about.
So you know about me.
I know more. I know more now.
Okay.
So I know about more than 35 years ago, you talked about hopelessness for young people, and I think the hopelessness still remains, and not. Your efforts have been tremendous, and we need more people like you, Mrs. Barfield, out there trying to help. I'm grateful, and thank you for sharing this story.
And thank you for all that all of you are doing to make Detroit better.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks
so much.
God bless you.
All right.
I think we need to do another commercial.
Yep.
Henry, let it roll. Thanks again. Thank you so much. Henry, commercial.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabree. We are living through unprecedented times. As a result, the Michigan Homeowner Assistance Fund was created. This fund, administered by the state of Michigan, is designed to help homeowners cope with pandemic-related hardships, such as delinquent property taxes. Residents may apply for up to $25,000 to help cover 2019, 2020, and 2021 tax years. Previous year's taxes must be paid in full or in a payment agreement with the Treasurer's office. Eligible homeowners must have a qualified financial hardship that occurred on or after January 21st, 2020. You must currently own and occupy your home as your primary residence and must have owned it since January 21st, 2020. To see if you qualify, please visit waynemetro.org, call 313-388-9799, or email taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Well, we're coming to the end of another spicy, hot Detroit in black and white episode. I'm gonna go to you, Jim, for your last words, and then we'll go to you, Allan, next.
Thank you.
I just want to say thanks. I appreciate Adolph giving me the opportunity. I met Adolph about a couple years ago, and when we listen to other people, we learn a lot. And I was very fortunate to do some work with Adolph, and I'm grateful for his friendship, and I'm grateful to be a part of this and the team here.
I'm going to say the air quality is still bad for through tomorrow. It's unhealthy, and so people like me, I don't have severe. I have sinus issues. I've been wearing a mask when I've been outside, and you know, if you're going to really spend a lot of time outside, it's probably should limit it, or you know, in particular if you have emphysema or other issues like that, you need to be careful. It doesn't look like anything out there, but it is impactful for some people's health. So
yeah, I agree with Allan. I was in Houston most of the week, and as soon as I touched ground, got in my vehicle, I started coughing. So this cough is, I have severe allergies. I have sinus issues. This is not good at all. Plus the mask it messes up your look. But anyway, I want everybody to have a wonderful weekend. Want to thank McShane's for allowing us to be here again today. Do a shout out to the owner of McShane's. Rocket Mortgage is having the golf outing on the west side of Detroit. Come out, enjoy Detroit, be kind to everyone, continue to have hope, and we will see you next Saturday. Bye.
all right.
I'm sorry.
All right, we're still live, Henry.